Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about more books that are funny. I realized the last video that I made on this may itself not have been very funny. So I feel like that's basically like a conceptual failure all the way down. I think that when it comes down to it, I take humor very seriously. I think as I begun that video saying, I believe that it is a very important aspect of human existence. And yeah, I think that's kind of the problem. A lot of the times when we see things as important, it blinds us from the lighter side of it, from being able to take a more whimsical view of things, to have some lightness of heart. Friedrich Nietzsche, he said something about this, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm gonna see if we can't make this video just a little bit more riotous. Hopefully there'll be, if I can't pull together a few sections or a few sentences that are at least a little bit waggish, jocular, rib tickling, daft, or fastidious, treating serious issues with deliberately inappropriate humor. Flippant. Oh, well, I'm not going to be flippant. Anyway, maybe let's just get into it. Okay, so first of all, we've got a couple of books that I think go together. Mainly, I think because of the authors said hi a couple times. They wrote to each other. So you have Sir Thomas More's Utopia and Erasmus's Praise of Folly. Actually, I think it might have been the case that Erasmus read Utopia, and then he wanted to add his own little contribution to the conversation. And for my money, I think Erasmus's is better, in my opinion. I read them once a couple months ago. I didn't do like a very deep reading of them, nor did I fully take the time to understand the cultural or intellectual context of either of these thinkers. But with Utopia, which I believe the whole joke about this is that it means no place, Sir Thomas More basically, he engages in like some social critique by describing a place, namely no place, that had a bunch of characteristics that I don't know if they were supposed to be like better than how things are or worse at times, but what they were supposed to do is like the way that things were at Utopia was supposed to, humorously reflect back on how things were in Mr. Moore's time. And I think he ends up describing like a pretty interesting city and culture. You've got people who I think they've got like a very particular work routine. Hold on, let me see if I can pull up some notes that I took on this real quick. Okay, so just glancing at my notes, which were themselves like not that rigorous. There's some strict aspects to this culture, also some silly ones. Keep in mind, I think that for Moore's time, there might have been some things that maybe might have come off as like pretty progressive for the time. There should be no death penalty for simple thieves, apparently. That sounds nice. And then, somehow things are so good that there's some people who like want to be slaves. And so the slaves are like only there willingly because like they have nowhere else to go or something. And then the sons of slaves can be set free, things like this. When you get married, it's customary to look at each other naked to see if you want to get married. And I guess they don't go to war. They play some tricks on people, and they banish or enslave those who are overbearing about trying to force other people to follow their religion, which might have been a poignant little piece of commentary back in Moore's day. So, you know what? Good on him. I feel like that text is worth another reading. I'm sure the work of Thomas More itself is pretty interesting, but I found A Praise of Folly to be a lot more, I guess, enjoyable. I also felt like I could make sense of it a little bit more. In The Praise of Folly, Erasmus articulates, or I guess personifies folly as a goddess who believe it or not, he praises. I think this is a quote from the text. I sure hope it is. Again, I'm just looking at my notes here. Folly is in poor repute, even among the greatest fools. Still, I am the one, and indeed the only one, whose divine powers gladden the hearts of gods and men. I believe that's Folly speaking, saying that nobody likes me, or nobody says they like me, but really I'm a substantial part and a substantial contributor to the happiness of humankind, just like I've said at the start of these videos. And I think it's really interesting how he's got like this double speak where he's praising these foolish things. He goes on to describe all the foolish things in his society that he doesn't like. Everything from the way that scholars and theologians are too like pretentious. Again, just glancing at my notes, women are foolish and that's why men like them. Friendship needs folly. Marcus Aurelius did more harm to Rome by leaving it to his son than he ever gained it during his time in office. I've even written that he's got an insight that is similar in character to one of Nietzsche's insights. So awesome. All right, we spent way too long talking about that. Let's move on to Voltaire by Candide. Actually, I am the fool. That is good though, because that's what we need. Okay, so actually it's Candide by Voltaire. And so Candide by Voltaire is a story about a guy named Candide by Voltaire who is taught by a cartoonification of Leibniz called Dr. Pangloss, I believe, who says that this is the best of all possible worlds, this being whatever it was, somewhere in Germany. Is where the story takes place. And Candide proceeds to go on a bunch of adventures that, in summary, disprove this idea that the world is the best of all possible worlds by showing, many hilarious and also kind of sad misadventures that Candide and his friends and companions endure. Then at the end, they resign themselves to looking after their garden. And I was simultaneously really impressed and really unimpressed by this text. I was really impressed by the writing and the story and the humor. I think it's really entertaining. It's really easy to read. It's really simple. You just sit down with a couple of pages and you read it. And every page, something new happens and something funny happens, something exciting happens. You're not sitting around here waiting for the next plot point. It doesn't feel very preachy, although I don't know. At times I disagree, I think, with Voltaire's philosophy. So I think I found it to have like this unearned confidence in its narrative voice. But it is funny. It's very well written. I think it's a good book to show to like young people or to people who want to try to start writing, to kind of show just how easy it is to like write a story. Just sit down with one page and just on one page just say that a bunch of stuff happened to somebody, and you might have to refine it later, but you can start building some interesting things. But Voltaire's beliefs about life, I think, were wrong. So Osho, I've never read Osho. I've only seen like one like YouTube video of Osho, so I don't even know if this is actually like I don't know if it's good, but I feel like it made me laugh. I feel like this is like maybe some accessible Western communication of Eastern philosophy. Yeah, I don't know anything about this, so it's probably kind of foolish of me to put it here. Okay, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. You guys have heard of this. You've maybe seen the movie, played a video game version of this. Okay, if you haven't actually read the original text by Lewis Carroll, or you haven't in a while, this is amazing. It's been a couple years or a year or two since I read through it last, and this is just a little bundle of joy in a book, and it's a good book. It's got animals, and she drinks this thing, and it goes to make her to be small, and then but also go the other way, and then she meets like all these different animals that talk about like syllogistic logic. And I know that's maybe not the best pitch but you're just going to have to trust me on this. All right, I'm just pulling up to a random page on a legitimately acquired copy of the book, and let's just read some random paragraphs here. A large rose tree stood near the entrance of the garden. The roses growing on it were white, but there were 3 gardeners at it, busily painting them red. Alice thought this a very curious thing, and she went nearer to watch them, and just as she came up to them, she heard one of them say, "Look out now, 5. Don't go splashing paint over me like that." "I couldn't help it," said 5 in a sulky tone. 7 jogged my elbow, on which 7 looked up and said, "That's right, 5. Always lay the blame on others." "You better not talk," said 5. "I heard the Queen say only yesterday you deserve to be beheaded." "What for?" said the one who had spoken first. "That's none of your business, 2, said 7. "Yes, it is his business," said 5, "and I'll tell him. It was for bringing up the cook tulip roots instead of onions." 7 flung down his brush and had just begun, "Well, of all the unjust things," when his eye chanced to fall upon Alice, and she stood watching them. Okay, this is an argument between 3 playing cards who are painting flowers. I mean, come on, you guys know Alice in Wonderland. This is amazing, and it's easy to read, like I said, just like Candide, just like Voltaire, both of those men. And yeah, it's just an excellent book. It's just a thing to like brighten your day, but then also, there is this undertone of like something eerie going on with that text. It always creeped me out when I saw it, like the movie versions as a kid. So it's interesting. There's like a horror adaptation of it on the PlayStation. Very interesting story. I give Alice's Wonder in Adventureland a 5 out of 7. And that's like really good because it's like exponential. Ecce Homo by Friedrich Nietzsche. This is Friedrich Nietzsche's autobiography. I don't know how familiar you guys are with philosophy or with Nietzsche in particular, but we might be doing a couple Nietzsche videos on this channel. But I think to illustrate my point here, I'm just going to read out to you the titles of the chapters in Nietzsche's autobiography. So the titles of these chapters are Why I Am So Wise, Why I Am So Clever. It's a different chapter. Why I Write Such Excellent Books. Then he reviews all of his own books. And Why I Am a Destiny. Nietzsche has like the brazen confidence to be more like self-aggrandizing than pretty much any other author I can think of off the top of my head. Most other arrogant people like Voltaire, for example, tend to like mask it a little more. And I think he is maybe like exaggerating a little bit. I think a little bit for comedic effect. I forget which chapter it is, but there is kind of a section where he starts talking about like why you shouldn't read. I think this is in Ecce Homo where Nietzsche says, some of these scholars who read so much, they've read themselves stupid. That's probably what I'm going to do. Make sure to subscribe and check out the World Literature Podcast on Patreon, where together we can build a community where we can support each other towards the goal of reading ourselves stupid so that we can't think straight anymore because we have so many ideas in our head. Nietzsche was very heavily critiquing this and suggesting that, you should not read first thing in the morning. Don't waste your vital energy on that. Having all these, qualifications about when and how much you should read. And woven through that discussion, he also was basically like recommending his favorite books by kind of going on these little digressions. I forget who in particular he recommended, but only this particular writer avoids the folly of being redundant and not worth your time. And I don't know, sometimes it can be a little bit refreshing to read a text where the author is just so willing to just lay it out all out on the table, not trying to pull any punches. He's not trying to hide anything, or if he is, it's like really, really deep in the subconscious that he's playing some weird game. He did go mad, he did go crazy, so who knows? But especially in this day and age where sometimes you can't get a straight word out of any institution, for sure. Sometimes even when you're talking to people, it's hit or miss. Everyone's trying to build a profile. What is this called? Prophelicity, whatever. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that, but just like you should wash your hands every once in a while, it can be refreshing to have a little bit of douse of honesty. And it is honesty, because even though he's like, I hope he's like exaggerating how highly he thinks of himself, or how highly at least he should think of himself, he's willing to just say, like, I think I'm wise, I think I'm clever, I think I write excellent books. And so, now you know what you're dealing with. And yeah, sometimes when Nietzsche is so blunt and he's philosophizing with a hammer, it can be really entertaining and funny to see him. It's like the catharsis of watching, like, I don't know if people really do this anymore, but when I was like an adolescent, there used to be like these YouTube videos about failures where everyone would fall off a bicycle. I feel like reading Nietzsche is kind of like that, except instead of random people, falling into a creek, it's the values you hold dear being gutted and destroyed. I guess, to be fair, that's sometimes not that funny, but sometimes it is. And yeah, thank you for watching. Click the links. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. And in the comments, I would appreciate it if you could leave a joke. And yeah, with that out of the way, I hope you have a wonderful day.